Hello, everyone. Welcome to the 21 Hats podcast. I'm your host, Lauren Feldman. This week, Shawn Busse, Liz Picarazzi, and William Vanderbloemen discuss what it's been like trying to make sense of employee compensation in a time of COVID, the Great Resignation, inflation, and looming recession. Shawn's business model is evolving, and he's trying to adjust his mix of employees to fit the new model with as little disruption as possible. Liz is expecting a year of big growth and is assessing how that will affect her staffing needs, especially as she introduces new benefits, including healthcare. And William is trying to create a more sustainable compensation structure while also breaking his employees' expectation that they will always get a year-end bonus. Plus, a listener asks, what tasks are the owners still doing even though they know it's not worthy of their time? Aside from participating in this podcast, of course. Even in good times, owning and running a business can be a lonely pursuit. Our hope is that these weekly conversations, brought to you by our sponsor, The Great Game of Business, will let owners know they are not alone in facing challenges. Same thing with our daily newsletter, the 21 Hats Morning Report, which Inc. magazine named the best newsletter for business owners and which you can subscribe to for free at 21hats.com, where you can also find transcripts of our podcast episodes and lots of other articles and interviews. Joining me this week on the podcast are regulars Shawn Busse, CEO of Kinesis, which is based in Portland, Oregon, and works with small businesses on marketing, culture, and strategy. Liz Picarazzi, who is CEO of CityBin, which is based in Brooklyn, New York, and makes trash enclosures and package bins. And William Vanderbloemen, who is CEO of Vanderbloemen Search Group, a Houston-based recruiting firm that works with churches and other faith-based organizations. The episode is titled, How's Your Compensation Plan Holding Up? Welcome, Shawn, Liz, and William. It's great to have you here for the first podcast we're recording here in 2023. I hope you're all having a great year so far. I wanted to start with a conversation about employee compensation. The latest figures show that companies are paying the biggest raises they've paid in decades, I gather, trying to keep employees. I suspect those numbers reflect larger businesses by and large, but I'm wondering if this is affecting you guys as well. William, this is your field. What are you seeing?
Well, I can tell you what we're doing at our office, and it's based on what we're seeing. You know, in the pandemic, we had to reorg and reshuffle, and we, for the first time, had to do staff cuts back in March of 2020. And that left us with we lost some really good people. It wasn't like we had fluff. But the people that stayed with us through that, we are very interested in keeping around. And retention is such a big deal right now that I authorize a percentage bonus pool, and then our managers go and figure out how they want to divvy that out. And I authorize the biggest pool percentage-wise that I've ever authorized.
Was that based on your company's financial performance in 2022, or was that based on the goal of retaining employees?
It was our best year ever, by way better than we thought. So it was a little easier to take that step. But, cost of living, I guess, is starting to come down some. But we kind of figured just to make people whole, we better do 8 or 9%. And then we did a little better than that.
Was it just bonuses, or did you offer significant raises as well?
No, that's all raises. Bonus is a separate issue.
I see.
Not everybody got that number. I mean, we offered that number to our managers and said, you might have some that deserve 11 and some only 8 or what. You figure that out. That's fine. But what we're authorizing as a company is a significant pool of money to raise annual salaries, which is, as you know, an evergreen cost. But we think that the inflation issue is real, and the people we have with us now are some of the best people we ever had. So we're kind of paying it forward in retention. And that's based on what we're seeing in other areas, that a lot of people really cut down to the bone during the pandemic. The people that are left are really pretty critical to the business. And painful as it is to raise evergreen costs, we're just going to do it to try and show people we understand that it costs more to live than it used to, and we want you around for a long time.
Had you had much turnover?
Well, we did about 7 or 8% the year before. So the losses we had were not because of finance. We made some pretty significant shifts in the last 12 months, and some people didn't feel like that was their best place to flourish, and they moved on, and that's fine. Wish them well. I don't think we had any really nasty departures. It was just chemistry is seasonal, right? And as we move from one posture to another, there's some that enjoy it and some that say that's not my deal, and we wish them well and move on. But I don't think we lost people because we were not keeping up with cost of living.
Sean, from what you've told us, I gather last year was not your best year ever. Tell us how you've been approaching employee compensation.
Yeah. So before the pandemic, I went really hard at the idea of compensation and making it better, because I started thinking about the thing that employees and owners both dread, which are those negotiations. And it struck me as very odd that you would go through all the effort to hire a really great candidate. You get on this the high of, oh my gosh, this new person, they're so good. And then right before they join your team, typically you engage in this like almost adversarial issue of figuring out what they get paid. And there's so many problems with that idea. Just I think of it from a cultural perspective, but also from a equity perspective and creating gender and race wage gaps. And so what we did is we committed to every 2 years doing a market-based survey of what the positions in our company pay. And then we committed to paying 75% of market, which is, not the very top, but also pretty significant. And then on top of that, we built a bit of a formula to factor based on experience, tenure in the organization, what the rate of pay would be for an employee. So that system was really great, because we do open book management at the company. So there's a real kind of clear understanding of financials and that there isn't this giant bucket of money to raise wages.
Are you transparent about salaries as well, Sean?
We are, but in a very specific way, meaning that every position that you want to go after will share that range and how that formula works. We don't post everybody's compensation on the wall. I think that that's problematic in lots of ways. But if, somebody says, hey, I'm a designer and I want to go into the strategy department, what would that look like? We'll talk about the compensation range and how that formula works. And then we also post it with every job description, which is now required legally in our state anyway. So that program has helped us from a compliance perspective a lot. And also, I think, protects us a lot from a lawsuit and that kind of issue. So I love it. It's been great. The problem that I'm finding now is it's time for our annual survey. We did the survey and holy cow, the wages have gone up so much. We were, like I said, pre-pandemic, we were 75%. Every position has gone up by anywhere from 1% on the small side to probably 14%. And then my position, which is crazy, so the CEO role has gone up by 20%, which is just astronomical. So now I'm looking at that going like, I don't need a 20% raise, but these other people really do need raises. And so it's really creating some challenges to our model, just partly because we weren't hurt instantly by the pandemic, but we were really hurt from a marketing perspective over the long term of the pandemic. And we're just now starting to kind of recover from that. But, everybody who knows marketing knows that the thing you do today will probably have an impact 6 months or 12 months from today. So that's our hurdle right now, is that our financial situation is kind of like, okay. And, how do I stick to my commitments in terms of compensation with a much smaller pie than I've historically had? So that's my challenge right now.
Have you started having these conversations with employees?
We've had it at a leadership level, and, these are the hard decisions that as leaders you have to make. And I think William alluded to this a bit. It's like, there's the added complexity of our business has changed dramatically in especially the last 5 years, but definitely over the pandemic. We've shifted from being, the shop you go to if you really need branding, if you need great brand work, we've got lots of design support. We can help you in that, to a lot more consulting and a lot more of a like strategic play. And so we're misbalanced as an organization. We have too many design resources, too many people who are in that realm, and then not enough who are in the strategy realm. Interestingly, the strategy realm is the place where the greatest compensation changes have happened, and the design realm is where it's flattened, which is, I've known that trend has been going on for a long time as design and content creation and lots of those services have been commoditized. So it's a tough situation for a leadership group because we love our team. Like everybody here is a great employee. We don't have any dead weight. And yet our ratio of employees is kind of wrong. And I would love to grow my way out of that problem. And that's what we're trying to do. But I don't know if we can grow fast enough to resolve that. That's the tension.
Where do you get the data you use when you assess the market salary levels?
Yeah, great question. So we partnered with an agency here in Portland. There are many of them that have access to pretty significant databases. I'm guessing William's firm has that kind of information. Most staffing and recruiting firms have access to that. They're an outsourced human resources company. And so we partnered with them. And basically what we did is we crafted job descriptions for every role in the company. And then some of those positions weren't easily off the shelf. So you might have a job like a strategist, which isn't, that's kind of a vague term. And so what we had to do is we had to combine off the shelf job descriptions like a marketing director and a business consultant and kind of create a hybrid role so that the analysts who, when they're analyzing the market, could say, well, if you're 60% marketing director and you're 40% business consultant, then, we're going to take 40% of that wage rate and then 60% of that wage rate and combine them and get to what the kinesis number is. The more specialized the job, the more you have to create kind of a bespoke answer to that question, which, I feel really good about that in that it feels fair. The challenge when you have job titles and roles that are not readily identifiable, I've also learned, is that makes recruiting hard. And William can probably speak to that too, because you have these terms that people aren't searching for. So there's a lot of challenges in there. I think we've solved it from the compensation perspective, but yeah, that's kind of a Pandora's box as we start to open that up.
Liz, what's going on with you?
We're still a very small company. We're just 8 employees. And so we have an evolving compensation strategy. We're kind of adding additional components each year. So last year we added profit sharing, which then will continue into this year. And we do have a lot more profit. So they're kind of getting a bonus is going to feel like a bigger benefit than it would have been, in the previous year. With salaries, we do reviews over the summer, and I do remember a couple of raises that I gave that were pegged to kind of the market rate, but they were looking at the inflation rate, and it seemed that there was an expectation that the raise was going to correspond directly with the inflation rate, which of course I couldn't do. And I did prepare for that conversation knowing that it could come up. It was maybe a Forbes article in your morning report, and it was exactly on that. Do not make raises directly based on the inflation rate because that's a temporary figure. That's always going to change. But in terms of like next year, not this year, we're going to be adding health insurance. We don't have that right now. And I guess one thing also looking into this year as we grow, I am going to be promoting a couple of people that have been with us for a while, which then will be managing new people that we're going to hire. But I'm also going to be hiring some people above my existing employees. And I'm a little bit worried about that. And that's where looking into the compensation needs to be done really thoroughly because existing employees are going to look very closely at what the new employees are making. I know it's a common issue in compensation, but it's not one that I've ever had to face before.
Are you transparent about what you pay people, or are you just assuming that people will find out what others are making?
It's kind of like I assume it. We're very open, but I don't have like a chart or anything on the wall.
Sure.
I would say it's evolving, and so far so good. But it needs to be formalized. If not this year, then next year.
Do you basically assume your employees talk about compensation?
Yes, I do. And the other thing is that a lot of the employees are friends and relatives even. So it's just like a natural thing. They're not like strangers. There's that familiarity. And then also the person that does payroll, I'm sure that she's discreet, but she's also going to know that if I hire someone that's paid more than she thinks they should be paid, that's the sort of scenario I'm a little bit worried about, which means I need to look very carefully at what I'm paying people now and make sure before I bring in someone at a higher rate that they're where they need to be.
Liz, how does your profit sharing program work?
We have it kind of on two thresholds. And I actually don't remember exactly what the percentages were, but if you hit one threshold, it's a certain percentage of the profit. If you have a higher threshold, the bonus is higher based on that.
Do you mean if the company hits a threshold or an individual's performance?
A company-wide. This year that we've been doing the profit sharing, actually, this is the second one. I definitely feel like people act more like owners, and maybe it's partly a function of it being small and also having employees that have been with us for a while and really probably feel like owners. I can see that there's probably more chasing, of deals and sales, as well as wanting to cost cut. I don't feel like I have to be so diligent about cost cutting initiatives because I know they're now incented to do that.
Does everybody get the same percentage based on their salary, or how does that work?
It's actually not based on their salary. It's based on what the company profit is.
So everybody gets the same percentage, whether they're a high level employee or a lower level employee?
Yes.
How do you work your bonuses, William?
Oh man, that's changed over the years. It's just changed every year. It feels like we're a little bit different. We don't have investors. We grow at the speed of cash. We don't have debt, never have, aside from, every couple of years, maybe having to do a line of credit when there's a cash crunch just from cash flow. So we don't have reservoirs for bonuses unless the company grows, right? Now, when we started, I didn't want to take out big loans. I didn't want to give away equity to investors. So when I hired people, I basically paid them a really low base salary and said, just trust me. If we grow, I will make it right at the end of the year. And depending on how we grew and depending on the performance of people, we had bonuses where the bonus was probably 50% of their overall compensation. That was kind of back in what I call the duct tape paperclip era for us. Maybe you never grow out of that, but it was kind of just how are we going to make this work for right now? And what I'm trying to work on now is sustainability. And so I'd rather get those base salaries up to a really competitive level. And what I found over the years was, I guess I need to be a better leader, but I found that those big bonuses, while if you took the base salary from the old days and the bonus, added it together, it's far less than what people are getting in a base salary now. But people don't remember that. They just remember, I got a big check in December, and I don't know how to prevent really nice people, good people, but it felt like they were a little entitled. And that sounds like I'm slamming my team. I'm not.
It's just human nature. Yeah.
So I've been fighting that quite a bit for the last few years, to the point of just saying, we're going to keep moving forward with making this a place where it's like, wow, you get to work there. You're well taken care of. You've got a great workplace. You've got great benefits. You've got great, and adding benefits. Oh my goodness, Liz, God bless you as you start that journey. That is amazing how much they didn't teach me this in seminary. So I've had to learn as I go. And, I'm doing things now that are different. I'm trying to be like, true confessions. Y'all don't forward this to my team from a year ago, but I was looking at I actually Googled how often do slot machines pay out? there's some math that's been done there that works really well. And it's like, if you pay every X percent of time, then people really think they have a chance of winning, but they don't mind if they're losing. And I'm like, maybe that's how often I ought a bonus. So we had in 2020, we had a really awful second quarter and our people pulled through it. And then July, things turned and it got better. And just as a thank you, I think we sent everybody $1,000 the week before 4th of July and said, go do something fun, or put it in the bank or whatever, but this is just kind of battlefield promotion pay, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just a one-time thank you. And I'm kind of moving toward that, like random, wow, you went above and beyond the call rather than annual bonus. Now, you asked me in 2 or 3 years, once I've got the salaries where I think they're really, really hard to beat and the benefits are amazing, it may be that I go back to what I was doing in duct tape paper clips. But for now, our focus is sustainability. And that means going ahead and taking the very expensive gamble of raising our annual budget every year by getting benefits and base salaries in a better and better spot.
Man, my experience so mirrors what you just said there, William. The early days, you don't pay people very much. If you do well, you throw a bunch of money at them at the end of the year. And I've learned over time that idea of an expected annual bonus is terrible for an organization because there are going to be years where you can't make that, right? That year you can't make it. The level of disappointment is just so high, and it's crazy. And like you said, it's like we pay people so much more now in annual salary than we do when we had the low salary plus a bonus kind of idea. And what's interesting about it is I think it's shaped us as a more calm company, a lot less drama, a lot less turnover, a lot more mature employees. And I'll take that any day. It's just so hard to go from one to the other, but I feel like you have to, because otherwise you're just like chaos, right?
100% agree with you, Shawn. We finished our 9 core values, cultural values years ago, and it was in the middle of this transition, right? And I had all 9 ready and we were headed to the office. We long process, involved the whole team and everything. And we were sitting there and our youngest, who was probably 2 or 3 at the time, and she's not a morning person, and she's the baby of the 7 kids, and she's sitting there eating her cereal, and she just looks up from her cereal and she says, "Today, I will not drama." And I thought, wow. And I thought, oh man, I need to, let's make it 10 values. That can be the 10th value. We will not drama. And I wish I had, but we didn't. And I even thought, well, like 10 commandments, not 9. Like I was doing all these things in my head. But getting the drama out is so helpful. And I'll tell you, as an owner, we had that year where we couldn't pay the bonuses. We grew, but we also added staff. And just for a lot of reasons, we couldn't do it. And it affected me. Like just very selfishly, It made me grumpy. It led to bad decisions on my part. It led to me taking on all this sense of responsibility for people that I shouldn't have. And I was not in a healthy spot that year. So I 100% agree with you. It's hard to get there, but we're making the shift little by little.
And your slot machine insight's really good because humans, as social media has taught us, really respond to asymmetric reward. So meaning like, oh, somebody liked my post. Oh, nobody liked my post. Nobody liked my post. Somebody liked my post. That is just addictive behavior. And so the problem with the annual bonus is it's the opposite of asymmetric reward. It's expected, right? So then you get this thing called hedonic adaptation, which is where people expect to be treated in a certain way. And that's the enemy of an entrepreneur is expectations and entitlements. So the slot machine idea, which is like, hey, we did really great. You guys pushed through something really hard. Here's a little bit of upside from that, and then time goes by. They don't see anything. Then like out of the blue, there's something different. I think that's a way more powerful way to engage. I think it moves away from the expectation of always getting something.
Liz, William referred to the challenges of getting up to speed in terms of introducing new benefits like healthcare, as you referred to. You have any questions about that?
Yeah, I mean, I would love for there to be some sort of a service or platform that's like one-stop shop where I can, get the health insurance, life insurance, anything with 401k, like all handled together. So I don't need to have different providers for all of that. Because as you guys know from me talking on here, I hate red tape. I can't stand administrative work. So the idea of having like 4 or 5 new providers to the business that need to be managed and looking at the pricing every year as we do, other types of insurances, it'd be great to have the one-stop shop.
So Liz, I can share, I went through the same heartache, bellyache, headache, the whole thing. And you got eight employees. And it was probably when we had 3 or 4. The reason I got to that heartache was we had 3 or 4 and we were doing a policy through just the guy that handles our insurance personally. And then Adrian had an allergic reaction to something. We were at a Halloween party for kids.
Adrian's your wife and co-founder.
Yeah. Sorry. So, I mean, she was fine. It was no real health scare, but man, she blew up like a balloon. She looked like a character in a Dick Tracy cartoon. It was awful. And it was terrible. She's like, do I look bad? And I'm like, those jeans do not make you look fat. Really, I promise. Yes. It was awful. And so the net was there was no cause for it. She spent 2 nights in the hospital getting it calmed down. She was fine, never in danger. But the next year, our health insurance rates went up 67%. They maxed out.
Oh my God. Wow.
And because we only had, it's all gambling. Yeah, we only had 4 people. So if you have one big claim. So I'm like, So we went to, you probably know this, Liz, but we went to a PEO. So like Insperity is like the biggest one. And it started as administstaff. Ironically, it was Adrian's across the street neighbor in Houston who started administstaff. And the PEO basically charges you a little more than you would get charged. And Lauren, maybe you or Shawn can explain it better, but you essentially lease your employees to Insperity, and now they're part of a 2 or 3 million person employee force that negotiates with the insurance carrier, so you don't have those max loads happen. And then they offer, we had life insurance, we had pet insurance, and everything. There's a little bit of a tacked on fee. It is more expensive, but if the headache is the driver for you, you might consider a PEO.
Yeah, you're thinking so right, Liz. And my same experience here, William, except that I've held on probably too long to like here's my 401k provider, and here's my insurance provider, and here's my payroll and benefits person, and like throughout the pandemic, a lot of those vendors have become really lame. And the administrative burden I have right now is out of control. And I'm looking really hard at like, how do I consolidate? In PEO is a potential option. There's another one that's relatively new called, William, have you heard of it? It's called an ASO.
Oh, sure. We did. That was our next step, was to go from...
What's an ASO?
Administrative Services Organization. I just found out about this the other day.
Yeah. You're not leasing your employees. So like when I was with Insperity, technically Insperity was employing all my people. They sent the W-2s. It was their employees, and they had 3 million employees spread across a bajillion companies. The ASO, It's like, no, they're my employees, but the ASO does negotiation, and it worked for us when we were a little bit bigger. Our third step, and where we've been for quite a while, is to just go with an insurance provider that focuses on family-owned small businesses. And we've been very pleased. And it's Benefits Concepts, I think is what it's called. It's based here in Houston, and it's one of the best ones in the world.
Yeah.
So we've evolved as we've gotten bigger. But back when we were where you were, Liz, we went with Insperity. It cost us a little bit more money, but the headaches were gone, and the concern about huge spikes in rate increases went away too.
Liz, there is an HR software platform called Rippling. I don't know if Shawn or William has any experience with them, but I know Sarah uses them and loves them. And I've heard a lot of other owners say that.
Yeah, I left out a step. We tried Zenefits for a while, which was one of the first of these online HR platforms.
Right.
And it was a total nightmare. So if you're going to go that route, it was awful. Like you can Google them. It was bad. It was just a typical, what I would call a typical Bay Area startup thing. And they had a fun culture and it was growing real fast, but they had no infrastructure. And it was so fun that, people were having parties instead of dealing with my benefits and, cart before the horse kind of thing. And I'm sure it's gotten better now. I'm sure the one Lauren mentioned is the next iteration of that and in a better spot. But we were early adopters and shouldn't have been quite so early.
Well, I think there's a new risk now. So that space is becoming really crowded, and there's a trying not to. I'm trying a lot of. Thank you. An S ton. There's an S ton of money, or there was an S ton of money coming into there. A lot of money coming into there, and I think the new risk is that capital is fleeing tech right now, and they're saying you've got to be profitable, and so. The problem William described was the early stage problem, immature companies run by man children. And now the problem is because money is not free anymore, these organizations are being told you have to be profitable. And so what they're doing is they're like hacking and slashing. And I'm curious if they will suffer from a quality and service perspective. And so that's the thing to watch for with all those online tech funded organizations. But yeah, some of them have been good for some of our clients. Yeah, I would just buyer beware on like all this stuff. And yeah, I'm interested in that firm you're using, William. Are they privately held? Are they a public company?
Yeah, privately held, but one of the largest in the world.
Okay.
They think like small business. Now, our open enrollment's in the summer because during COVID, there was a grace period. So it moved from end of year to the summer. And he's told us to expect a 6 to 7% increase, but he shops around and is very competitive and has made this iteration of our benefits a lot easier. I do think, Liz, you're just in for increased overhead every single year once you do it. And for us, we have a lot of people that used to work in churches and then come to work for us. And they've never worked in a small business, or they work for a giant oil company and then come work for us. Oof. And the benefits that are offered in, those kind of, like, I can't compete with that. I just can't,
Yeah.
It sounds like you have some interesting organizational issues you're thinking through there.
Yeah. So, I have the goal to double revenue again this year.
Again, being the key word there.
Yes. Last year, I didn't do much planning around growth as we grew. So I want to be more diligent about it this year. And it gives me a chance to look at all of the existing roles and see, does it make sense? The distribution, where the next roles need to be, so I am using this as a chance that maybe once every 2 or 3 years, I really look at the organization and see what needs to move, what needs to be added, what needs to be removed. So I'm not being very concrete about it now, but that's because I just started the exercise last week. And I actually had a couple of my team members present an org chart to us a couple of days ago on if we doubled the company, where would the new roles be and what would they be? So we were off in Japan in December and I had to give them some sort of kind of big thinking activity. So that was it. And they had some really good ideas. There were a couple of surprising kind of shifts where, I'm not hands-on. I'm not in the business. I'm not dealing with the warehouse or, with the tariffs or any of these things. So seeing what is the nitty gritty of what various people are doing and how some things don't make sense the way they're done. And I'm seeing this as an opportunity to make roles a lot more clear, as well as to create kind of a growth path for employees to be promoted into, other roles.
Are you clear in your mind what the most important pieces you need to add are if you're going to double revenue this year?
Yeah. So it's mainly to add sales and marketing in the municipal area. So for cities, sanitation departments, business improvement districts, as well as higher ed, we are just using our existing team to get all those sales, and they're growing. It's been a very kind of rapid growth. But I see that if we bring someone in that already has a good Rolodex or good experience in those areas, that's going to help us grow a lot. So that would be an important part. And then I do see in terms of like operations with the warehouse and with supply chain and with shipping, right now there's a kind of a mismatch of people doing it, including Frank, my husband, who spends almost every Sunday at the warehouse counting boxes. That should not happen. We laugh about it. He does have this sort of, it's a routine now. He goes there on Sundays, and it really is just like, as an owner, the feeling of having your product and your inventory around you, that sort of ownership over what you've created. I think for both Frank and myself, that's like a great feeling, having come from like corporate backgrounds where there's not much tangible value that you can see and touch. So, he's kind of explained it that way. But
what exactly is he counting, Liz? Is he making sure you have the boxes ready to go out the door in the coming week, or?
It's a combination of things. So because we're doing so much with the city and it's so high profile, we do have a lot of inventory going out to those, and we just want to make sure everything is right. And then the other thing is, like, we have 3 containers that just came in yesterday. And so we need to make sure that we have room in our warehouse for it. And that does, because we haven't kind of operationalized the calculation yet of the warehouse space, it's been sort of manual. So I should probably ask him to kind of, let's make this more clear. So we automatically know how many containers will fit into this warehouse, for example. Like right now, that's kind of vague, but he enjoys it. He worked in supply chain stuff in his previous career. So, a lot of the stuff with, dealing with customs and with shippers, and he likes that stuff.
I'm kind of curious to step back just a minute about your hires in the coming year. You said sales and marketing. I hear a lot of people shove those 2 words together. Do you see that as one role, 2 roles, separate roles? What are you going to hire first? Tell us a little bit more about the strategy there. Junior, senior. Yeah, spell it out for us, because this is, I would say, one of the top 5 struggles for business owners, especially in that, kind of $1 to $5 million range, even up to 10 million.
Well, so the sales is in this area of government and education, and we don't have expertise other than doing it for the last couple of years in that area. And we just know there are people that sell to institutions, and they know how to do it. They have, deep connections, existing connections. So the idea is to bring in someone that can really set up that whole kind of sales network. Maybe it will be regional, maybe, who knows, maybe it would be virtual, but can really set up a diligent sales process with higher ed and with cities.
Quick question about that. So this is another pain point. Do you hire the person who manages the other people, or do you hire the person who's like in the trenches selling and closing deals?
I would hire the person who is managing the people and like setting up the whole strategy.
Okay. So that's an expensive hire. That's like a 6-figure hire pretty easily, is my sort of market assessment. Would you agree with that?
I would, yes.
And then you got to hire the people to do the work. So really, you're talking a sales investment of probably $160,000 to $250,000. Yeah.
Yeah, it would be.
Years ago, 10 years ago, golly, yeah, maybe even a little longer, I was at this same juncture, and I love selling things. I mean, from being a newspaper boy, which doesn't exist anymore, like I was the salesperson when we started. It was just me and the dog and Adrian. And I was looking for that next salesperson. And I remember going to Dreamforce, which is the Salesforce big conference out in San Francisco, and going to Inbound, which is the HubSpot. And we're customers of both. And just by dumb luck, ended up having conversations with the heads of their sales departments. And both of them told me the same thing in separate arenas. They said, our clients, probably the number one mistake of founders who like selling is they wait too long to hire the EVP of sales. The person that I hear you saying, Liz, you want to go after. Smart ones will do it soon. So I think you're really onto something going that direction first.
Yeah, no, I definitely see that. And if, it is 160, 200, I think that it would easily pay for itself.
Yeah. I mean, these are big ticket sales, right? Long sales cycle, high dollar.
They are, they're institutional. My only concern is just that, as it is with any new employee, is, are they going to be worth it? I have had some failures in hiring people. So bringing someone on maybe a project or consulting basis to see how they think and what they can do, I would do before going out there and hiring someone like that. Because, I just have experienced that sometimes they say they have the connections and they understand the way that they're going to do it. And then they're a bad writer. So for me as a writer, I find that so offensive that it makes me question, does this person know what they're doing? This is really important. Do I need to write the sales copy? Yes, I'm controlling, but most of the time when I write the sales copy, it's good. It's not often when I have someone else do it. And that's such an important communication. So their ability to communicate is really important.
I tend to find that somebody who's good at the strategic level of selling should be good at communications. But then often when you get down into the real hunting and trying to get the deals, those folks struggle because they're always in such a hurry.
William, I'm curious, in the beginning, you told us that you're coming off your best year ever. I'm just wondering, did you figure out something about sales in the past year that led to that?
Oh, Lauren, every great success we've had is just right place, right time. It's not me figuring it out. The pandemic ended up being, there's so much bad. I don't want to minimize the horrible situation people went through, but I frankly, in as early as late 17, I'd just gotten kind of complacent, sustainability, low growth. And I just kind of was riding our normal growth. And then when we had to redo everything in 2020, it's almost like we went back into startup mode, and which was really healthy for me. I didn't like it. There's a lot of things healthy for me I don't like, but coming out of that, one of the things we realized is, as Lauren knows, we're content-based marketing. Nearly all of our leads are inbound. We didn't do any outbound calling. And most of that is because we were doing a new thing for churches when we started, and churches and new ideas are not best friends. So you can't just cold call people with a new idea for a church. It won't work. You get the door slammed in your face and kill your brand. So we spent years providing content that would draw people to us. And then they would finally write to us when they get to the bottom of our funnel and say, okay, I'm ready. Can somebody call me? And it was great. It was awesome. I remember the first salesperson I hired. It's like, you don't go out and hunt and kill and drag it back in a cave. You wake up in the morning, you open the door, and there's a severely wounded animal on your doorstep, and you just have to drag him across. It was nice. But after the pandemic, we realized the pandemic accelerated so many trends, right? And one of the trends it accelerated was that the idea of search among the faith-based communities we serve has now become normal. It's not a new idea anymore. It's probably a new idea for pockets of the church and places that are later adopters. We are no longer on a sales call selling the idea of using a search firm. It's now, why are we better than any other option that's out there? Which made us say, okay, for 2022, the big goal is we're shifting our posture from reactive to proactive. In other words, we're reactively waiting on leads to come in, reactively waiting on candidates, reactively waiting. We're going to move everything to a very proactive, compassionate aggression, if you will, really get after it.
By doing what?
Well, making proactive sales calls. Literally, if we had a lead in Atlanta, we hired a sales guy, we sent him to Atlanta, he went to see that lead, and he went to 4 other churches that he figured out needed pastors, and he knocked on their door, and old school sales, which never would have worked before, ever. And it feels, I could be wrong, give me another year or two to back this up, but it feels like the pandemic accelerated us toward a tipping point where we're now a proven concept as an industry. Now, I kind of wonder if the biggest lid to our growth for this year is just not having enough salespeople. I know businesses would kill to have an automated content-based, here come leads down the funnel. We don't have to do anything. And we're going to keep doing that. But on top of that, we're going to become much more proactive and aggressive. And I won't bore you with all the geeky details, but the data is showing us, you can see if you look at our dashboards, like, oh, wow, it could be harvest time. And it means that it's a whole new kind of person that's doing the selling. And that it goes back to some of the turnover that Lauren had asked about earlier. It's not good guys or bad guys. It's just people that, hunters that are truly proactive salespeople are different than sort of the nurturers or farmers, to use the other kind of salesperson. So it's a fun time. We'll see where it leads, but it's a fun time.
Do you have enough time passed yet, William, to where you can do just a financial analysis and say, over the course of 24 months, we spend $280,000 on content creation and marketing.
Yeah.
And over 24 months of hiring salespeople, we spend this much. And then under each of those models, we get this many inquiries and this much converted revenue, which is really the most important number.
That's so good. I just wrote all of that down. We're figuring it out as we go. And the whole cost to acquire the customer and the lifetime value of the customer are two equations that we don't have forensically figured out. I think the reality is, Shawn, the proactive go get them leads wouldn't even be possible had we not poured the money into the content base.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's why you guys were rightfully laughing at the books behind me when we had the video on earlier. The only reason we wrote those books is so people would say, well, they are trusted advisors. They know what they're doing. And we offer a resource to the church at a very low cost. And then when they need something, they remember us and come back. And I don't know that our outbound sales team could do anything had we not done this first step.
That's a great point. And then the thing that'll happen is you'll get the salespeople in that new environment will be like, I'm killing it. I'm so good. And it's like, well, yeah, and 15 years. So right.
We're almost out of time. William, I'm sure we'll come back to this throughout the year, but I got a listener question. I want a real quick answer from each of you, starting with you, William. What are you still doing that you kind of know in your heart you shouldn't still be doing?
Right now?
Besides podcasts.
No. Dealing with any part of the business that has to do with sales or operations.
And you are still involved?
Yeah, some. But we have a massive research project that is turning into a book that will come out likely the end of October. And I need to focus every ounce of energy on getting that completed and getting the launch done right, because I think it could be, I don't want to overstate, but I think it could be a game changer for us.
Shawn, what are you still doing that you shouldn't be doing?
IT, just so much IT. We didn't need to even think about it for a while because we had such a good partner, and then they really fell apart. Because I'm the most kind of technically savvy person on the team, I'm having to kind of vet new vendors and evaluate what's going on and figure out what to do. And just, kind of being involved in that still is, it's a terrible use of my time, but I don't really have a good choice.
That's the danger of having a little knowledge.
Yeah, I know.
How about you, Liz?
I've talked a little bit about how our trash enclosures and our parcel bin, have different rates of sales. And so our parcel bin has never done nearly as well as the trash enclosure. And so I've been whittling down the time I spend on it. But I'm really committing this year to spend less and less time on it, unless I can hire someone to come in and work on it, because I'm needed on everything with municipal, and cities are not buying package lockers, at least not yet.
Got it. All right. My thanks to Shawn Busse, Liz Picarazzi, and William Vanderbloemen, and especially to our new sponsor, The Great Game of Business. You can learn more at greatgame.com about what they do. Have a great week, everybody. Wait. Don't leave yet. If you have a question or a comment that you'd like the 21 Hats owners to address, send it to me by replying to your morning report or by email at lauren@21hats.com. That's LOREN @21hats.com. Do it now before you forget. And don't be afraid to tell Jay what you really think. He can take it. And if you got something out of this conversation, help us reach more business owners. Tell a friend. Subscribe and review us wherever you get your podcasts. Follow us on Twitter. Subscribe to The Morning Report at 21hats.com. This episode was produced by Jess Thuberon, founder of Blank Word Productions. Okay, now you can leave. Thanks for listening, everyone.